Okay, my name is Megan Flynn, and this is my midterm exam. I'm gonna read the questions off my computer, like from an email, and then my outlines are right here in my lap. Okay, the first question says, what anti-Semitic laws did the Nazis pass, and what actions against the Jews did the Nazis take between April 1933 and November 1938? How did the German Jews react to the anti-Semitic laws and actions? How did the non-Jewish Germans react, and why did so few of them help the Jews? And then I use the primary sources on Germany and Austria to answer this question, specifically about like the different laws the Jews had to follow. So the certain laws the Jews had to follow were some of them was a law for restoration of professional civil service, which means that Jews couldn't perform civil services. The Aryan paragraph law, which excluded Jews from organizations, professions, and other aspects of daily life. Like, they basically weren't considered a civilian. German law restricted number of Jewish students at German schools. Like, they couldn't attend German schools or like professional medical schools. Other laws lowered Jewish activity in medical and legal professions. Like, Jews could only help treat patients that were Jews. That was in the primary source of documents of the Holocaust, Germany and Austria. The Nazi government revoked licenses of Jewish tax consultants, and they fired Jewish civilian workers from the army. So, like, no Jews could be certain part of that army anymore. The Nuremberg race laws were like the big main set of laws during this time. They were basically, it was concrete segregation between Jews and pretty much other races, like Jews and Germans, or Jews and a few other affiliations, and then Germans. Jewish officers were expelled from the army. Jewish university students couldn't even sit down when they were like taking their exams, like a medical exam. They wouldn't be allowed to sit down and take the test like the rest of the students in the class. They'd have to stand up and take it. Nazis revoked the licenses of Jewish lawyers. Jews couldn't be lawyers anymore. That was in the primary source of the Germany and Austria with the documents of the Holocaust. All Jews had to carry identity cards. Like, all passports were stamped with the J. And then, like, the night of the broken glass, Nazi legislation banned Jews from all public schools, universities, and theaters and sports facilities. It didn't matter. Like, if you were a Jew, you couldn't be there. That was in the primary source of Austria and Hungary. I meant Germany and Austria. And then there are more than 400 legal restrictions on Jews and other groups. Like, there was a ton of laws. That was just covering a few of them. I don't have time to talk about every single one of them. So German Jews were subjected to repressive policies since 1933. Before this, they were mostly non-violent, but with Hitler as chancellor, conditions for German Jews grew increasingly worse, like more violent. Like, for instance, Night of the Broken Glass, very violent, bad things were happening. They tried to fight back, like the German Jews tried to fight back, but many were killed and thousands were taken to concentration camps because of this. How did the non-Jewish Germans react, and why did so few of them help the Jews? So Hitler didn't brainwash like the German population in countries or like people across Europe. People collaborated with the Nazis, and they chose to denounce like their Jewish neighbors for their own personal benefit. Like, they would give up their hiding places, or like not help the Jews because they could acquire properties or businesses or homes of the Jews. Some even took over like everything, like Jewish family next door could have owned, took over everything by giving them up, like not giving them hiding space. People tolerated the crimes that the Nazis committed for their own reasons, and the Holocaust happened because of a million individual choices. The government basically arrested anyone who was against Hitler or didn't follow along with his rules. With the Nazi Party, they were either put in jails or concentration camps, and people weren't brave enough to help because they could have been arrested or killed. So that's why so few people helped the Jews, because they were scared and didn't want to be sent away or killed. The next question was question 2, and it says, what was the Wannsee Conference in 1942 all about, and why is the meeting relevant in the context of the Holocaust? In your opinion, who is to blame for the Holocaust and why? Discuss the role of Hitler and the SS, the German bystanders, and the role of the Catholic and Protestant churches in bringing about or not standing in the way of the Holocaust. How could the Holocaust have been avoided in your opinion? And all the websites you listed below for the question right here, I use those as my sources to answer the question. So the Wannsee Conference was a meeting to present the plan, the final solution of the Jewish question is what they called it. It's the code name for the systematic, deliberate, physical annihilation of the Jews, and it's relevant in the context of the Holocaust because this plan is what really set the Holocaust into play, and is what that's what the Holocaust was, the extinction, trying to get rid of all the Jewish race and population. Okay. I believe the responsibility for the crime of the Holocaust involved many more people than just Hitler. Obviously Hitler was the main person behind it who set it into play, but the Germans and thousands of others across Europe were aware of the crimes being committed and really did nothing to stop it. A few people did, but it wasn't enough. Hitler's role. Hitler was the leader of the Nazis. He played a key role in the events leading up to the unfolding of the Holocaust. Hitler rarely took direct action, though, against the Jews. He directed his security forces to the SS, the SA, and the SD to do all the dirty work for him, basically. Hitler was involved in all major policy decisions, persecutory policies, and events. The SS's role, they operated all Nazi death camps. And so they were the SS and the police stirred the violence in the Night of Broken Glass, which was a big night during this time. It was really violent. They played the leading role in all of the major operations of the final solution. They were responsible for the murder of as many as 1 million Jews in shooting operations, and an SS captain is said to have murdered at least 167,000 Jews in gas vans. The German bystanders' role was they really didn't speak out when witnessing persecution of the Jews or mass murder. They didn't offer shelter to Jews seeking or hiding. They chose not to be involved when business opportunities or personal gains came about. They could take the Jews home for their own benefit. Like I mentioned earlier, the teenagers harassed Jewish classmates. Ordinary Germans became involved when they acquired Jewish businesses, homes, or belongings sold at bargain prices. And people wanted to help were basically arrested or executed. The role of the churches were most Christian leaders supported the rise of Nazism, so they didn't really speak out against hateful speech or violence. They pretty kept it quiet, for the most part. Some churches supported the Nazi regime. Only a small minority of priests and religious leaders spoke out against the Nazis, and provided aid or help to like the Jews. That was in the links that you gave for their email, like the ones that we could use for the sources. And I don't think we could have stopped the Holocaust altogether, but if more people would have spoken out and more action was taken, I believe we could have reduced the death toll in total. Okay, question 3. Auschwitz, okay, I gotta read it. What was Auschwitz and what was the camp's purpose? How was the camp organized and what was the selection process? How were some Jews able to survive Auschwitz against all odds? And like you put the little links to like see Kitty's account in The Guardian and the video of Levi's account and survival. And those are the sources I used for like how they survived in the bottom, the last question. I used those sources to answer these. Auschwitz was a concentration camp and it was the largest of all Nazi camps. It was located in South Poland and it evolved into like a huge network of camps. Where Jews were exterminated in gas chambers or used as slave labor. Some prisoners were subjected to medical experiments as well. But those deemed fit to work were employed as slave labor, which were essential to Germany's efforts during World War II. So the camp consisted of several subdivisions. That's how it was organized. Auschwitz I housed between 15,000 to 20,000 prisoners. And like on the sign going into Auschwitz I, it says work makes you free on the main gate. Auschwitz II was the biggest facility. It housed 90,000 prisoners, had bathhouse where countless people were burned to death, crematory ovens where bodies were burned, and majority of victims died in Auschwitz II. It had more than 40 smaller facilities called subcamps, which served as slave labor camps. And the largest of these subcamps was known as Auschwitz III, which housed over 10,000 prisoners. So the selection process, like to know basically which camp you go to. So you go in, you're examined by the Nazi doctors, and you had to give up all your belongings like suitcases, anything you had on, basically everything you owned, you gave up. Those who were deemed unfit to work, which were like young children, elderly, pregnant women, and sick people, were immediately ordered to shower, which wasn't really a shower. It was a bathhouse that were actually gas chambers, and they were immediately killed if you weren't deemed fit to work. Those fit to work would be used as slave labor, but many died from overwork, disease, and starvation, and the living conditions were terrible in the camps. You didn't get fed that much food, like not enough to survive, and it was really cold in the winter. Executions and torture happened daily in front of other prisoners. It was very common there. So, survivors. How were some Jews able to survive? So, the average life expectancy at Auschwitz was like a few weeks. In Kitty's account of The Guardian, I read how like they ate out of rotten food piles just to stay alive, and how they tried to stay positive and stay far away from Jews who looked like they were giving up, or like they had that look on their face where they were done trying and they basically just wanted to die. So Jews stayed away from other Jews who looked like that. And the Survival of the Auschwitz book that talked about Levi's account, I read how if they needed like a rag to blow their nose or like some pads for shoes, they would wait till the ceremony of the change of the underclothes and like try to tear off a piece of rag to be able to have that, because they didn't get new clothes that often and they had to sneak even when they got to do this because their clothes were worn out. They didn't have some people didn't even have shoes, and if they did have shoes, it was really hardly anything. Yeah, so these are my outlines. I don't know how to turn it around. My first one, second one, third one, and then I used all these blue links that you used. I used them to help write my outline too. Those are the sources I used, only the ones that you gave. And yeah, that's all.